Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I am your host, DPalm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Follow the show on Twitter at UDPod, and you can follow the entire MTR Network at the MTR Network. We are a one-stop shop for everything you need. For a unique take on the look at the world around you, come to the MTR Network. We handle, of course, movies, TV reviews. We, of course, handle politics and breaking news. We, of course, handle, everything else you could possibly want behind the paywall, but last but certainly not least, we now handle sports here at the Unanimous Decision Podcast. Again, you found us, don't lose us. You subscribe to the MTR main feed, God bless you. But make sure you don't miss any of the performance-enhancing audio provided to you by the good folks here at Unanimous Decision by subscribing to our feed specifically. That way, when we drop our midweek podcast, whether it be a Royal Rumble preview or the first episode of our brand new internal series of interviews, it's the best way to make sure you don't miss anything is by subscribing today. Once you subscribed, go ahead and do us one more favor. Leave us that 5-star review. I know what you're saying, hey, it's a 5-star review, what's it really matter? But if every one of you who listens to this podcast, and I see stats, people listen, not just my parents, leave that 5-star review. It would give us an amazing way to track not just our listener engagement, but able to tell people who maybe want to, give us money, how much money they should give. So, what you're saying is, hey, DPalm, that's just only helping you. If I have more money, more freedom, I'm creating more content and letting you get through your day a little bit easier by listening to the smartest way to look at your sports. Now, we have no new reviews this week. If you have more you want to say to the podcast that won't fit in a review, hey, that's good too. Email us at udpodcast@gmail.com. It's the best way to get your voice heard. Let us know things we can change, things we can make better, or things you just want to hear more of. Or maybe you just want to tell a story like our guest last week, or our listener last week did, about when football might have quit you. We're going to do a call for stories for something that's coming on. Once the football offseason hits, I'll probably dip more into that, but don't worry, there's more listener engagement coming because we're going to hit that dead period in sports, and I'm going to need you guys to put in your half. All right, I've done all of the basic housekeeping. You should also know that now we finally have our own YouTube channel. I'm still figuring out the best way to do videos. There will be videos on that YouTube channel. All our podcasts go up there. In case you're in a place where you can't access streaming audio, you can go to YouTube, you have an internet connection, and listen to our podcast there as well. That's all the big business for the day. We are joined today by no guest. That's right, solo show. And let me be honest with you. I have a show recorded from Sunday that covered most of what I wanted to cover today. I covered a lot of it. I felt like it was a decent show, but it wasn't great. So I wanted to make sure I came back on and give you guys an even better show that can live up to the expectations of the bar that I think that we've set here. And we're going to get started. And the best way to get started is to look back at the week that was in sport. And holy hell, a whole lot happened. Let's start first with our lead story from last week. The sentencing of Larry Nassar, the scumbag, disgusting former doctor who abused scores of women, who had the audacity to claim that, in court, mind you, during his sentencing, mind you, that the emotional trauma being bestowed upon him was unjust and unfair. He was sentenced to essentially die in prison last week. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But a lot of the conversation surrounding the sentencing has been directed at the presiding judge over the case, who people say she grandstanded too much, or she was too mean to the man who destroyed all these girls. To those people, firstly, I would say, why are we centering the abuser? In all things, particularly in this situation, the focus should be on the victims, on how they move forward. The abuser, he has rights. He is a human being, an American citizen. He has rights. They're not of my paramount concern at this moment. It was empowering and devastating to watch those women file up there and tell their stories. Devastating because it painted an even clearer picture of just how large the systemic and societal failure had been for these women. Empowering because you saw some women write in, have their notes read. Some people said they didn't want to have their notes read, but listening to these young women's accounts and how empowered they said that they felt after facing this man gave me hope. What gave me more hope was one young lady writing from grad school in California who said, I'm writing this because I didn't want to fly to Michigan because, quite frankly, you're not worth my time. May all these women find peace with, not with what's happened to them, but with what eventually was done to try to not alleviate, because nothing erases it, nothing can make these things go away, but find some sense of justice, some sense of closure that someone cared eventually. But, like I said, he's going to die in prison. So let's talk about some other people who, as I already said, failed these athletes. Michigan State President Lou Anna Simon. Much was made about her refusal to step down after the Board of Trustees voted to give her a unanimous vote of confidence last week. She released a statement to the, released a letter to the Board of Trustees in which she announced her resignation on Wednesday at 8:50 in the evening. I want everyone to remember one thing. Lou Anna Simon is not innocent. She knew for years what Nassar had been doing. The parallel Title IX and MSU police investigations were made to her attention at least in 2014. For 18 months, he continued to serve in his official capacity at Michigan State University. They tried to silence the victims instead of dealing with what had occurred on her watch. This is a quote from Detroit News, who did great reporting on this. He was stopped by the victims who had to fight through being silenced, being threatened, being mocked by the officials at MSU who they appealed to for help. And now the very people who should have been protecting us all along have thumbed their nose at any semblance of accountability. I'm going to read in part Simon's letter of resignation. As tragedies are politicized, blame is inevitable. As president, it is only natural that I am the focus of this anger. I understand, and that's why I've limited my personal statements. Throughout my career, I have worked very hard to put Team MSU first. There it is. She believes she did her job because she raised funds for that university. The members of the United States Gymnastics Committee believe they did their jobs because they brought home gold medals. The moment your path to success is littered with the broken bodies and psyche of those you would use to attain it, to quote a terrible movie, the juice is just not worth the squeeze. The value of these young women goes beyond their ability to shine a spotlight on the United States once every 4 years, or to help Lou Anna Simon build another wing to something out of Michigan State. The U.S. Olympic Committee has ordered the gymnastics board to resign, or the federation lose certification. They have, of course, resigned since then. But what's most damning is that they are allowed to resign. And hopefully, in their eyes, recede into the shadows. Because that's where this all occurred. This all occurred in the shadows. A shadow that no one in charge wanted to shine light on. I'm not going to play or read any of the victim impact statements here because, again, like I said, they just make me physically ill, and maybe I'm just too weak. I'll be that weak. But I would encourage, because I've listened and read privately, I would encourage you all to do the same. Because this isn't just a gymnastics problem, and it's not just a woman problem. It's a cultural problem. As I said last week, this would be front page news if Larry Nassar molested 150 boys. Because in this country, in this world, right, wrong, or indifferent, we've accepted that women get raped. This wasn't on the front page in a lot of places for months until it reached the sentencing phase, or until the victim impacts were too numerous to ignore. Why is that? Why, when Jerry Sandusky case was out there, was it the lead story everywhere? But Larry Nassar, Fox Sports has gotten away with with covering 0% of it. Go to Fox Sports' website right now. Look up Larry Master on their search. Look up MSU and scandal. Look up trial. See what pops. It won't be much. A couple AP reports. Hasn't been discussed on their television airwaves. Won't be discussed on their internet airwaves. And we'll talk about why later. Multi-palm. It's just gymnastics. I've heard that refrain. Not directed at me, but I've seen people, I use that term as loosely as possible, kind of hand-waving this away, saying, oh, this isn't a major story because it isn't a big sport. That's why people don't care. T-palm, it's not because they're women. That's being reductive, and you're casting aspersions on society that don't exist. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's see how that one plays out. Because on Friday, Outside the Lines, ESPN uncovered reporting that they've been doing independently of at least 37 cases that have been brought before Mark Emmert, the head of the NCAA. Title IX cases that had gotten filed that involved Michigan State basketball and football teams. These are names you know. These are names you respect. These are names that you're told run clean programs. Mark D'Antonio, and Tom Izzo. When Mark Hollis, the athletic director, on Friday announced his resignation, he had a ridiculous release. You guys, I don't feel like reading it because it makes me disgusted. Because part of it says, I'm not running away from anything. I'm running towards something, comfort, compassion, and understanding. An hour later, a story he knew was going to broke. An OTL, in a piece meticulously reported by Paula Levine and Nicole Noren. I want to get those women's names correct. Because it paints a picture not just of a rogue actor operating under the auspices of healthcare on Michigan State's campus. No. It's a system put in place to encourage, protect, and reward these actions. Officially, people noticed that the school was less than forthcoming, that they had actually sued ESPN when seeking some of the records in this story. People who act like they have something to hide generally, wait for it, surprise here, spoilers, have something to hide. In June 2017, Mark D'Antonio stated that a sexual assault case involving one of his players was unfounded territory for the program. That he had never handled something like this before. We know now that's not true. We know now that there was a pattern of rape and gang rape occurring on Michigan State's campus, disproportionately involving football and basketball players. We now know that it's been 3 times, not once, 3 times in court, that Michigan State has fought in court to withhold the names of athletes from campus police records. The school had deleted so much information that some reports were nearly unreadable. And it fell to career-minded educators and people who were actually dedicated to making education a better place, who had later left MSU because they couldn't affect any change and saw no progress being made. Those are the whistleblowers. Those are the heroes of that OTL piece. And the numbers are damning. Since D'Antonio started at MSU since 2007, 16 MSU football players have been accused of sexual assault or violence against women, according to public records and interviews. D'Antonio, on the record, was involved in handling discipline in at least one of these cases several years ago. In June, 6 questions into being asked about sexual assault, he said, "This is new ground for us. We've been here 11 years. It has not happened previously." People in power will lie to you to maintain their power. Tom Izzo. Not clean either. including a player who was accused of sexual assault, cleared, played, then became a coach for Coach Izzo, was accused again of sexual assault, and kept his place on the bench while the investigation occurred. Before the investigation could finish, Tom Izzo had secured another 5-year extension from MSU. So when you see the pressers and you see the post games of Izzo saying, I'm not going to answer that, or I've done the best I can, or we will continue to cooperate with Title IX investigators, no, that's a lie. When Mark D'Antonio tells you that his program has never seen something like this, no, that's a lie too. Michigan State sexual assault counselor Lauren Alsweed, who is probably risking a lot here because there isn't a wide world of intercollegiate athletics that allows for outsiders. It too is an insular world. And once you're known as a whistleblower on those levels, it's not a good thing. She was there for 7 years. She said it all happened behind closed doors. None of it was transparent or included people who were normally involved in certain decisions. Whatever protocol or policy was in place, whatever frontline staff might normally be involved in response or investigation, it all got kind of swept away, and it was more handled by the administration and athletic department officials. I know a lot of people listening aren't Title IX compliance officers. But you're a human, and I'll tell you right now, any governing body, any group that says we'll handle it in the in-house, particularly when it comes to sexual assault, that's just sending red flags for everyone. But because people are making too much money off the backs of these uncompensated athletes, because people were there was too much opportunity, there was too much to lose, too much was at stake. Hey, a rape charge will affect our recruiting. Let's sweep it under a rug. Hey, that'll look bad for fundraising. Hey, I'm up for a contract. We can't report that. Under the rug. 2 days after OTL asked Jason Cody, an MSU spokesperson, for additional interviews with multiple administrators, that's when the AD Hollis resigned. He wasn't running towards something. He was running from something. And let's be very real here. This is not, and I said this last year during the Baylor scandal, the fall of the Baylor scandal, and I said it when this story broke. This is not a Baylor problem. This is not a Michigan State problem. This is an American society problem. And it goes partially to the mistreatment of women. That's undeniable. If these men were assaulting other men, they would not have been swept under the rug. That's a fact. The other half of it is how we venerate sport. Now, I know what you're saying, D-Palm, this is a sports podcast. How are you going to actually make this one work? And I might not, but I do have to say it. If I told you that your son's science teacher was discussing covalent bonds and he messed up, and that the teacher got within 6 inches of his face, screamed at him, told him how worthless he was, and that next time if he screwed it up, he'd never ever see the inside of a science class again. You'd all be discussing. We'd all be on the next thing smoking to that child's school to give the teacher a piece of our mind. If I tell you that happened on a football field, you say, well, that's just good coaching. If I tell you it happened in a basketball court, well, hey, you got to toughen up the players. For what? They're not storming the beaches of Normandy. We give leeway to institutions that we hold in high regard. Be it sport, be it politics, be it the church. We'll say, oh, but the larger aim of that institution is good. So the things that we must take to get to that good, we kind of have to roll with. I challenge you to ask questions about the institutions that you hold above reproach. Is sport inherently good? I don't know. I've seen it used for good, and I'm talking about it being used for ill. Maybe it shouldn't be above reproach. Maybe it should be right where it belongs, or should be a diversion that does not distract from our own inherent humanity. And because sports has become so big so fast, it feels like we've lost sight of that, if we had it in the first place. Because sports regardless of what they show you on Sundays, is not a church. Hell, church is not a church. If it can be destroyed by light, it should just be dragged into the light. Now I know what you're saying. How do you pull out of this weird tailspin you've thrown the podcast into? It's like we're just too real. I double down because that's what I do. Fox Sports, the propaganda wing of the right wing, has completely ignored the Larry Nassar story. And normally when you say completely ignored in 2018, it feels like hyperbole. It feels like you're speaking above certain things. But no, not at all. Deadspin, who has done tremendous work on this case, did a closed caption and keyword search for the last 6 months of Fox Sports' 2 national networks. They got 2. FS1 and FS2, which not creatively named. It reveals that Larry Nassar's sex abuse case has never been discussed on any program. A Fox Sports spokesperson said that the coverage was noted because they don't cover gymnastics. Because they don't have the rights to gymnastics. Do you think Fox Sports covers only sports it has the rights to? The answer to that is no. Is there no one who, among the army of talking heads, who felt like it was necessary to discuss Larry Nassar? Fox Sports can tell you how strong Simone Biles is, but it cannot tell you that her doctor sexually abused her. ESPN, who we all bang on, covered it in depth. Aside from the OTL reporting that I already discussed, SportsCenter has opened with it repeatedly. OTL, Bob Lee's Bob Lee. I'm not even going to hear rep Bob Lee. The non-news shows, Golick, Around the Horn, fucking Will Kane, who I fucking hate, covered it. And you say, well, maybe, just happenstance. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reaching for straws. Or maybe Fox Sports in April 2016 finalized a 15-year agreement worth more than $150 million with Michigan State for the school's multimedia rights. I don't know. We'll have to see. Speaking of ESPN and the mothership, we're going to see some changes on the SportsCenter set. So, I believe it was a year and a half ago now, SportsCenter, the primetime SportsCenter, was relaunched as SC6. It was going to be more of a culture-driven, more open discussion about sports. I haven't caught it often. I'm just not home by 6. The times I've caught it, I've loved it. I found it engaging. I found the hosts dynamic and relatable. Jemele Hill is a host that we've covered here often, who I'm an unabashed fan of. She, as you may remember, was suspended for some, fairly accurate comments about President Donald J. Trump. She called him white supremacist. She didn't call him a microwave or a bicycle or a smart man. She called him white supremacist. She didn't call him a name. She described him. When a man is more ready to disavow his allegiance to feminism, as he was this weekend, than he is to white supremacy, I'm going to say maybe you should apologize for suspending my girl. But Jemele Hill is now leaving SportsCenter 6, and there's been a flood, an outcry, an overwhelming and quite welcome call for Jemele to get her spot back. But reporting now is coming out that maybe Jemele asked for the trade. So if you listen to I want to make sure I get this right, Sports Illustrated's Tech and Media podcast with Richard Deitch from, I don't know the date, I want to say, let's see here. It was this month. She commented on how the backlash to the Trump thing really kind of affected her. And it's something that I see on Twitter because obviously we run in much smaller circles than Jemele freaking Hill. But you see it when people like quote tweet or screenshot and share it with a known bigot on Twitter, and you watch that person's mentions get deluged by all these either Russian bots or racist Americans. Imagine that writ large every day for your entire life because you were honest on television. Or, excuse me, not on television. You were honest on the internet. Hill gave this quote to the podcast. I have more regrets about the medium because most of us find out every day in some form or fashion that Twitter is not necessarily the place for nuance. Twitter's not even really a place where you can have some extensive conversation, particularly about race. Twitter's not built us up for that. It's built on quick thoughts, okay? And that's not something to have quick thoughts about. So I don't have any regrets about the language I use because I do think there's some evidence to at least where we can question some of the things that he said or done. That's a great political answer. And for that matter, examine why there are large groups of people, women, people of color, who feel they're very vulnerable at this time under attack. I don't regret what I said or even the language I use. It's just the where. I think the where is problematic. During the podcast, she speaks to the reaction to tweets being mentioned by the United States president and how she feels about some changes and whether or not she even fits in the sports center paradigm. It sounds like, particularly the departure of John Skipper as an advocate role for minority and marginalized voices, had as much to do with it as anything. It sounds like Jemele's going to be going to the Undefeated to be doing podcasts and written work for them. And I know we all say, hey, we want more strong, proud black voices on this medium. We need to remember that there are people behind those voices. And sometimes those people need to practice that self-care. And I, for one, hope, first and foremost, I hope she wasn't forced out. I hope that everything that's coming out is true. And I hope that she's happy. And that's all I can hope. And I hope they get someone who's fired for Michael Smith because they had amazing chemistry. So, the MAGAs, who are now taking credit on Fox Sports for quote-unquote running Jemele Hill off television. Last Thursday, Vince McMahon announced he's going to relaunch the XFL. And if you're asking yourself, wow, D-Palm, the XFL and MAGA, that sounds like a bridge too far. How could you connect them? He hate me. Well, this is not the XFL of old. The new XFL apparently will have a premium on somehow player safety and game speed. It will somehow employ enough players to field, I believe it's 8 teams, but none of these players will have DUI convictions. All of these players will presumably stand for the anthem, which apparently, if you are wrestling nerds like I am and you realize that Vince McMahon sold all his stock immediately thereafter, Trump's quote about the NFL players going to war with the NFL, you kind of saw this coming. But I need to assuage all fears and doubts. This league will never happen. I was on Rich Fan's podcast, livecast, over at PW Torch this weekend, talking about this very subject. I'm going to repeat there when I said here. Well, I speak here when I said there. One of the two. Before we get to anything about the talent let's just talk about the structure of the league. Because what's happening with this rebirth is based basically on Charlie Ebersol's ability to convince ESPN to do a documentary about the XFL. Now, when I heard that was coming with a 30 for 30, I thought, oh good, a film on a train wreck. I didn't realize that Dick Ebersol's kid was making it. So if you watch it now, it becomes a puff piece about how Dick Ebersol and Vincent Kennedy McMahon were these visionaries who were just undone by the weakness around them. People who could not understand their great and grandiose vision. Let me decode that for you. A carny who makes a lot of money being a carny convinced a rich man of a bad idea. He used that rich man to then finagle other rich people to investing in that bad idea, and the bad idea fell apart. Because Vince McMahon's a carny. And I'm not saying that in a pejorative sense. Pro wrestling is built on the make money in the town, burn the town, get out. It's a carny system. That's why they travel. But also the landscape was very much different in 2001. We're talking about the most popular league at its most popular peak. The idea that people could want more football was very much alive and very much real. 2018, these youth numbers are dropping in youth football. More concerns and lawsuits about concussions. And ratings are down. Across the board. Do we really want more football? Also in 2001, NBC was out of the football business. They'd lost the rights. They had no football product, and it was the most popular thing in the world. Of course, they were going to jump at an opportunity to recapture some of that audience. 2018. Who doesn't have a relationship with the NFL? I'll wait. And I've heard the response, oh, they're going to go streaming. No one's figured out how to monetize it yet productively for sports. Do you trust Vincent Kennedy McMahon? Okay, well, backing. Hey, Vince is a millionaire, he should be a billionaire, it's according to CM Punk. How are they going to pay for it all? Can you think of an advertiser in this country who'd be willing to get on the wrong side of the NFL on this? You think the NFL doesn't have exclusive language built into their contracts? Saying, hey, you advertise with us, you will do no other business with any other professional or semi-professional football league. I would. So it'll be interesting. I think this is another shell game by Vince. I think he's going to develop. Here's what I think the XFL's purpose is: to develop a platform with which to deliver the games, and he's going to sell that. He's going to sell that infrastructure. That's what I would do. I would sell the infrastructure of delivery to someone else. A football game should never be played for the XFL, but I'm afraid that people are going to poo-poo into existence somehow. Like, you can't convince a rich white guy that something's a bad idea. Like, because you tell him no, he's like, well, watch this. Like, it becomes the impossible white man, as Rod likes to say. It becomes James Bond movie. Like, I bet you I can. When in actuality, a bad idea sometimes is just a bad idea, no matter where it came from. But we'll see. You know, maybe it'll work, but it won't. Oh, and the criminality ban. The respect the flag. We get it, Vince. The same North Carolina carny who will tell you his greatest hero is Martin Luther King. Whose WWE has a tag team champion who got popped for a DUI 2 weeks ago. Whose WWE trotted out during Raw 25, Stone Cold Steve Austin, biggest star of the Attitude Era, made Vince McMahon more money than God probably drove the WWE to go public. Who also beat his wife. So without getting into the many failed ventures that weren't professional wrestling for Vince, and some that actually were. No, let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about facts or things that are going to actually happen. Let's talk about Vince McMahon and his attempts to sell us another set of Wolf tickets labeled XFL. XFL2 Electric Boogaloo. It makes no sense. People really are willing to entertain this nonsense. Because why? Like, that's my question. It's always my question. Why? When the players were kneeling before the anthem to call attention to the extrajudicial murders by the state of black and brown men in the street, and there was pushback, why was the answer to say, well, we need to placate the people who were mad? Because they were loud and mad, or because they were white and mad? Because guess what? I'm pretty pissed that Kaepernick didn't get a job. And just like those people who were being loud and angry and white and angry, I didn't stop watching either. The times I didn't watch, I was just all footballed out. Sorry. You put it on Thursday and it's a bad football game. I'm not going to watch it. You can't trick me. I'm not stupid. World Bodybuilding Federation. How'd that go? Look up WBF. It goes really poorly. Just leave it at that. But we'll see. This McMahon says he's going to do it. You know he's going to try. And the best thing I can hope for is that he keeps his hands off my pro wrestling. NBA is in full swing. Woj season is occurring. I'm recording this right now as Blake Griffin was just traded to the Detroit Pistons. Cap space being what it is in the NBA, I'm very curious to see how they're going to afford that for any length of time. But hey, not my money, not my problem. All-Star season's upon us. We've had the teams have been picked. The teams have been announced. The teams have been picked. We've even got a little spiciness. Because when they announced the roster, so Steph and LeBron somehow pick these teams over a conference call, which, boo, they will be on television next year, mark my words. It may happen on Friday night, just like we suggested last week. Counting that. And at the end, you had the starters. I guess LeBron picked first for the starters and Steph picked first for the reserves. So the list came out and it was alphabetical. Russell Westbrook looks at the list, sees the list, and goes and drops 43 on John Wall. Why? Because he didn't know it was alphabetical. He thought he was the last pick. All-Star snub season is the best season of them all. Everyone takes everything massively personal, and I can't really begrudge him for it because, hey, talk shit, get hit, and you don't have to talk shit if you just got left off a team. Andre Drummond got loose the night he got left off, 40-12. This is the best time of year. It can also be the worst time of year, as Boogie Cousins' Achilles tendon gave way. Now, I know some people who listen to this show aren't Boogie fans. I would implore you to stop listening to this show. Here at the UD Pod, we're very pro-Boogie. I'm wearing a Boogie Cousins t-shirt right now. Boogie against the world when he played for the United States Olympic team and represented this great nation in the Olympic Games. It sucks on all levels. New Orleans deserves a winning basketball team. Anthony Davis deserves a running mate. And Boogie Cousins deserves to go into a contract year healthy and hale and make as much money as possible. None of those things are going to happen now. Maybe he gets to stay in New Orleans because he gets to come back at a premium, take a year, prove he's back. I don't know. I will tell you right now, I feel horribly for the kid, and I hope he gets better. Now let's talk about the real reason why I had to come back here and re-record an entire podcast. Because this weekend, I was treated to one of the greater wrestling weekends of my life. And yes, I'm folding this into one podcast because I don't think there'll be enough time for two this week. Saturday night, the Wrestling Faithful, and if you're not a wrestling fan, that's the podcast. The outro music, I haven't chosen it yet, but it'll be dope as usual. So go to the last minute and listen to that. For those of you who are left. Saturday night was one of the purest wrestling experiences I've ever had, not being in a building. The card was great from top to bottom. NXT, those kids deliver every time, and every year, every time they have a takeover before a main event, I'm like, well, what are they going to do with the big show? Because they can't follow that. And normally they don't. I don't know if they did this year, but we'll see. The main takeaway from NXT Saturday night, amongst all the activity, it's all the actions, all the announcements from the crowd, was a 30-minute war between Cien Almas and Johnny Gargano. I've watched it 3 times since. It's the best WWE match I've seen 10 years. Whenever Taker Sean was last, this is it. This is the mark. And I know that's some recency bias, and I'm sure that in the coming days I will settle down and have it settle nicely into my top 5 rep matches of all time, maybe even top 7. But right now, recording today, I'll take the Pepsi Challenge with that match ever. And for people who say, oh, it's fake, oh, it's stage, oh, how can you get invested? I tell you this. We all watch television shows, and we all know the contrivances they use to make the shows happen, and the writing tricks they use, and the storytelling tricks, and the way they sell things out. But when you're watching that show, you lose yourself in the show. You let yourself be told a story. And I would challenge anyone who's ever been invested in storytelling to watch that match and tell me that it wasn't a masterpiece. The Royal Rumble we'll get into a whole other time. As far as the full card, I do want to talk about the winners. For the men, the victor was Shinsuke Nakamura. A win 2 years coming now since his arrival in the WWE. It's his first Rumble ever, and he picked up a win. Shinsuke's 40, so the time to strike is now with him. But man, I didn't think they'd do it. They did a great job, the booking of the Rumble, and I, famously, on these airways, anti-Rumble guy, I had a great time through both hour-long Rumbles last night. The right people got the right burn in the men's Rumble. The final 4 being Cena and Reigns versus Finn and Shinsuke. Electric. And now, we're getting Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles, for the WWE Championship in the Tokyo Dome. I'm sorry. In the Mercedes Superdome. Or Benz. I'm not sure what the one in... Is the one in New Orleans called the same thing as the one in Atlanta? Because that's got to change. Or we're just playing in the Beamer Bowl every year, twice a year, which I'm actually kind of here for. We'll talk about that another time. Probably August when football's back. The Super Bowl isn't happening in my mind. And more, I think, strikingly, it's a non-native man whose English is better than he shows on television, but still isn't his first language. Is this Vince loosening the reins, or maybe getting more focused on the XFL? If Vince's XFL leads to Shinsuke winning a Rumble, I'll pony up some money. I'll ref on the weekends. Who cares? It's not a real job. It's not a real football league. The Women's Rumble. Historic. First time ever. Got to see some old favorites come back and lead in Trish Stratus. Got to see some old not-so-favorites come back and the Bella Twins. But the story they were telling was always a story they were going to tell, and it's the indomitable spirit of Asuka. And I'm not going to use it as the cover image, but there's a picture on my Instagram of both of those wrestlers, Japanese-trained, Japanese-born, Japanese people, standing on that turnbuckle and pointing at the WrestleMania sign, and both of them look like $1 million. The end of the match, of course, is covered by major media because Ronda Rousey came out in a Rowdy Roddy Piper worn jacket with a new Rowdy Ronda t-shirt with the Piper font, which I felt uneasy about until I found out that Piper's son had given her the jacket and the blessing. I'm fine with it now. It just felt weird. And she came out, ingratiated herself to the crowd. People popped. It was a huge pop. She pointed at the sign. Very unclear as to where that's going. I know there's been some hubbub on the wrestling internet about whether that was right or wrong, or whether that buried the performers. None of that seems true to me. It seems like it's the WWE maximizing the eyeballs onto a main event, and I bet tonight's Raw, which starts in about 10 minutes for me, is going to be one to remember. Emboldened by whatever got us here, I'm happy we're here. I'm happy for Mania season. You're going to have more wrestling coverage as we lead up to Mania, and more basketball coverage as we head into and out of the All-Star Game. That was your show. This is your outro. See you next week.